compile the rate for that component. And if you have 100% accurate quantities, but your rate is incorrect, then your estimate would be incorrect. So your rate is just as important as your quantities. Okay, so I did the same to calculate my rate. I just added in some columns next to or between my quantity and my cost, next to my component, and I've listed all the bill of quantities items as listed in the Guide to Elemental Estimate. So you will recognize this from your Guide to Elemental Estimate: excavations, risk of collapse, backfilling, compaction, antipoisoning, and concrete. In this case, I want to know what is the size of my excavations and the size of the concrete and the size of all the other items. That way I can calculate a factor that I can multiply with a bill price and get an estimate price at the end of the day. So as an example, for my excavations, the size is 0.6 wide, so there's the 600 wide and the 980 millimeter deep, so that is 0.98, and that will give me a factor of 0.59. So easy to calculate the factor, similar to my quantities. It is just merely multiplying each one of the dimensions with each other. That will give me my factor. So in actual fact, what that means is for every 1 meter of length, I will have 0.59 cubes of excavations. So that would mean that when I take my bill of quantities price, 95 Rand per cube, multiply by 0.59, my rate per meter then for excavations would be 55 Rand and 86 cents. The same apply with risk of collapse. Now, for risk of collapse, I'm only going to have a look at the total depth. That is, the length is in 1 meter. For 1 meter, I'm going to have 0.98 multiplied by 1 multiplied by 2 for both sides of my trenches. So my factor would be 1.96 square meters per meter, and multiply by 6 Rand per square meter. So my rate per 1 meter of unreinforced footings, my rate for risk of collapse would be 11 Rand 76. And that you do with all of these bill of quantities items. So that is your bill of quantities price, and finally your concrete, the same. And all you have to do is then to get the total rate is to add up all your prices for all of the items, and that would give you a component rate of 433 Rand 16 per meter for that component. So just another thing that is not included in this calculation of mine, and that is escalation. So you will recognize that the bill of quantities was compiled in 2013, that is 7 years ago. So these rates are historical rates, and we want to know what is the current estimate for this building. So you'll have to escalate these rates to today's date. So that is for 7 years. So you have to escalate that with inflation over the past 7 years to today's date. So that is a historical rate in actual fact for this component. So the best way, I would say, just to add another column maybe between your bill price and your estimate price, and that is an escalation factor maybe. So you can multiply your bill of quantities rate with your factor and multiply it with another factor to get your estimate price. You could either add that column between your first factor and your bill of quantities price, or your bill of quantities price and your estimate price. I would say, well, it might be might make better sense to put it between your bill of quantities price and your estimate price. So that is a very important part of an elemental estimate, and a very important part of any estimate, to get your rates right and to know exactly what is in that rate. And that is why the guide to elemental estimate is so good, because it tells you exactly what is in that component, how to compile the rate for that component. There's a guide used for that. And the same with all other elements and components throughout this elemental estimate. I hope that was helpful.